Okay. All right. Sorry.
Okay, so today we're looking at Jamie's video of her lesson that addressed Standard 6 assessment, Standard 7 planning for instruction, and Standard 8 instructional strategies. And as you were saying, you wanted to have a true assessment of your students' writing, and you chose peer assessment here. And I think that this is great. This was probably my favorite lesson thus far, what I've seen you do with your students. Without a doubt, peer assessment is an assessment method that engages your learners in their own growth by encouraging active participation in the writing process. So how it addresses that standard is that you're doing that in such that when students evaluate each other's work, they're developing a deeper understanding of that subject matter. So for in this instance, it was how to critique and apply rubrics and criteria effectively, thus refining their critical thinking skills, also fostering self-reflection as students compare their work to their peers and recognize their own areas for improvement while they're doing that. So I think that's really important. Also, by monitoring progress through the peer feedback, students gain immediate insights into their strengths and their areas for growth, like I just mentioned, and they become more accountable for their learning and their work and are more likely to revise and improve their work based on the constructive criticism. This formative assessment also helps build confidence and a growth mindset. And as for you as a teacher, peer assessment is providing you with valuable insight into student understanding and common misconceptions. It informs instructional decisions for you, allowing you to tailor your lessons, provide that targeted support, adjust your teaching strategies to meet your individual students' needs as well. And it's just that this is a collaborative process that ultimately leads to more student-centered learning, where both you and your students are actively guiding instruction and improvement. Okay. So Standard 7 with planning for instruction, absolutely your learning objectives were very clear. The criteria for this was very clear as to what you wanted them to do. It was a simple one sentence, and the assessment was broken down into 5 criterion. And those students, well, in a group, were only responsible for one area of that rubric. For example, the first area was argument
slash thesis. Do they have one?
Thesis. And it made it easier for them to focus on that one area of the rubric and become maybe even better in that particular area by focusing on that area and connecting peer assessment to the real world. Now, when you were doing this, it made me think of a job that I had where we were interviewing candidates and we did what we call a blind review. So basically, sometimes they have this connects to the real world. They may have this come up in their life sometime where they're in a team and they're looking for a candidate for a position on their team in the business world. So sometimes they have what they call a blind review, where they're looking at candidates' resumes without knowing who they are, where they're from. So no bias is there, and that you cannot judge. All you're looking at are their credentials and their experience. So something like that could apply to the real world. And yeah, this is a learning tool, not for them. This process is more of like a learning tool instead of a grade, which helps them reduce their anxiety by removing the names. They didn't feel the pressure of, oh, wow, I'm going to give my peer, I know this is my best friend in another class and I'm going to give him a poor grade. So they didn't have that pressure feeling like that. That it removed the anxiety by doing the blind review, so to speak, or the just having the names off. And it created a safe, respectful classroom environment. And the students saw feedback as constructive instead of critical.
Right.
And Standard 8, so we talk about this particular instructional strategy, peer assessment. It helps students develop learning experience that require them to demonstrate those key writing competencies like you had talked about and broken down in the rubric, and also critical thinking and analysis by asking your students to justify their feedback within that writing rubric. And also it fostered collaboration and communication, and the students have a structured peer review protocol. They were able to discuss their feedback effectively. Now, after you explained in the video, tasks, the students immediately got to work, you had said,
Yeah.
right? They got to work, they started reading, highlighting, discussing the essays, they were asking good questions, they had that good discourse going on between them, and they were just discussing in the ways the pieces were composed, both good and bad. And furthermore, they really dug into what they were doing, which is engagement. And that's most important too. And they spend the whole class on being engaged on how to assess their peers without feeling pressure of, knowing who that individual student was. Again, I just think this lesson was great, and I'm going to give you the highest score for it.
Thanks. I think what exactly what you're saying was what I loved about it is that it is really hard to get people engaged to assess and to get through that process and feel comfortable and do I know what I'm doing and whatever. And by breaking it down into these just very simple ways, then it gave them the empowerment to be I know what an argument is, or I know what the video said, so I can find what they're talking about in the video, right? And then they highlight it and it's it's either there or it's not.
Yep.
It's either good or it's not, and then it was just, I think that simple check plus, check minus removes that number out of it to be is it a 10 or a 9? Or it's just nope, it's this,
and
this, or this.
those
It
were
was clear.
simple things that you, directions and instructions. Check is the best. Check,
Right.
No, check plus was the best. Check was okay. It's good,
good.
and check minus needs improvement.
Right.
And I just thought that was great that you established those clear learning objectives for the students, and it made it easier for them and more engaging because they were really able to grasp what it was that you wanted.
Right. And when I had done it, and that's why I was going to show it, it's not as clear on the video, so we'll show on this one, but you can see the highlighting, you can see where they kind of made comments, and then you can see it's so simple, but it works. It worked. And I think I really struggle sometimes in my brain. I have all these ideas and then they don't translate. And for once I was this translate that it just got going. And my thought process is, it also eliminated, it's faster for me. I am going through them all and giving them a
And they're
grade
blind
too.
copy.
And
for you.
blind for me, so I have no bias. I think though, maybe in the future, when you have 150 kids and you can't sustain this type of grading, maybe this becomes your grade and the kids get better and better at it. So it's we all agree that this is what it is, right? And that felt
and they're learning.
good.
What they're doing is you're learning actually together about each other. And do you see yourself using this again with a different type of lesson?
Oh yeah. I think the whole process went really well. They got it. I think, giving that I said, how'd the class do? And they were maybe a C, B. And I was oh, get C's and B's, then we know where we need to improve. And so we're missing some essential things. And then to be able to look at this assessment and go, I don't think they know how to build an argument.
Right.
Well, actually, I think the argument, I don't think they know how to conclude anything, right? So my assessment going through this is the conclusions are rough. So maybe that's where we focus, and that's what felt like it was successful. And it's hard from that video to see, but every group was working and everybody was talking through it. They had questions. They were asking each other versus me. It took me out of it, which I was trying to do a lot. So anyway, I felt like it was probably one of my better ones too.
And I absolutely love it. And as an instructional coach, I am going to use this to help with my teachers across the
We're
still there? Yeah,
we're still here.
Across the board at middle and high school, and to trying something out with their classes. I loved it, and I think it was really, really great.
Great. Thank you so much. That's
Thank you.
Good deal. All right.
I'm just wondering, I have to take my jacket off.